Most people remember the final images. A dark, uneven world drifting through space. Jets of gas erupting from its surface. Humanity's first close look at the nucleus of Halley's Comet.
The spacecraft that captured those images was called Giotto. But Giotto was not the first spacecraft to reach the comet. And by the time it arrived, something unexpected had happened. The closer humanity got to Halley, the less certain anyone became about where the real target actually was. In the mid-1980s, Halley's Comet was returning to the inner solar system for the first time in more than 70 years. Across the world, space agencies prepared for a rare opportunity. Mission maps showed trajectories converging toward a single destination. From Europe, from the Soviet Union, from Japan, spacecraft were launched toward the same comet. The challenge seemed obvious. Reach Halley. Build a spacecraft that could survive the journey. Calculate the trajectory. Arrive at the right place at the right time. From a distance, it looked like a race. Which mission would get there first? Which nation would achieve the most successful encounter? The target appeared fixed. The problem appeared solvable. Then the target began to disappear. As Halley approached the sun, it awakened. Ice buried within the nucleus began turning directly into gas. Dust erupted outward. A vast cloud formed around the comet. That cloud, known as the coma, grew larger and brighter. And it created a problem. The thing every spacecraft was trying to reach was now hidden inside its own atmosphere. From Earth, telescopes could see the growing cloud. What they could not see clearly was the nucleus buried within it. The closer Halley came, the more active it became. And the more active it became, the harder it was to determine exactly where the nucleus was located. The mission no longer looked like a simple interception. It began to resemble driving at high speed into dense fog while aiming for a target hidden somewhere inside it. Every spacecraft approaching Halley faced the same question. How do you aim at something you cannot clearly see? The answer would not come from a telescope on Earth. It would come from the first spacecraft willing to enter the fog. Weeks before Giotto's planned encounter, 2 Soviet spacecraft arrived. Vega 1. Then Vega 2. Their paths carried them through the comet's environment before Giotto reached it. At first glance, these missions appeared to be pursuing their own achievements. Their instruments measured dust. They sampled gas. They observed the strange environment surrounding the comet. The race continued. But something subtle had begun to change. The Vega spacecraft were no longer simply approaching Halley. They were becoming pathfinders. As they crossed the comet's neighborhood, their instruments started revealing details that no telescope had been able to provide. The cloud was not behaving exactly as expected. The distribution of material around the nucleus contained surprises. Measurements refined estimates of where the hidden nucleus actually was. For the first time, spacecraft were not observing Halley from afar. They were passing through the environment itself. And every observation narrowed uncertainty. Not completely. Not perfectly. But enough to matter. Far behind them, Giotto was still approaching. Its course had already been planned. Its encounter was already coming. Yet every day that passed reduced the opportunity for major changes. This was not a spacecraft that could stop, circle back, and try again. A flyby is a one-shot event. Miss by too much, and the most important observations never happen. Wait too long to adjust, and the chance disappears forever. The corridor of possibilities was shrinking. Data from the Vega encounters flowed into the growing picture of Halley. Scientists refined estimates. Navigation teams updated targeting solutions. The exact details were complex. The visible reality was simpler. A spacecraft had entered the fog, and the spacecraft behind it now knew more than it had known before. The story was beginning to change shape. The missions no longer looked entirely independent. Information was moving from one encounter to the next. The baton was being passed. As Giotto closed in, the margin for error continued to shrink. Ahead lay an environment packed with dust particles, moving at enormous speeds relative to the spacecraft. Each tiny grain carried the energy of a projectile. Every uncertainty about the nucleus location translated into physical risk. Aim too far away and the mission would lose valuable observations. Aim too close and the spacecraft could be overwhelmed by impacts. The target remained hidden. The options continued disappearing. Eventually, the moment arrived when no more meaningful corrections could be made. Giotto was committed. The spacecraft entered the comet's environment. Dust strikes began hitting its protective shielding. Instruments continued operating. Data continued streaming home. The nucleus grew larger in the incoming images. For the first time, humanity was seeing the central body of Halley's Comet in remarkable detail. Not a fuzzy cloud, not a distant point of light. A real world. Dark. Irregular. Active. Jets of material blasted into space from its surface. The object hidden inside the storm finally emerged. The encounter was violent enough that Giotto suffered damage during the flyby. But it survived long enough to return the images that would become iconic. The pictures remembered around the world. The pictures most people associate with Halley's Comet. Looking back, it is tempting to tell the story as a triumph belonging to a single spacecraft. Giotto arrived. Giotto photographed the nucleus. Giotto succeeded. The reality is more interesting. The closer humanity moved toward Halley, the less certain the destination became. The challenge was not merely reaching the comet. It was discovering where the hidden nucleus actually was before the final encounter occurred. That certainty was not created all at once. It accumulated. One observation at a time. One flyby at a time. One spacecraft after another. The trajectories that once looked like competitors in a race now resemble runners in a relay. The Vega spacecraft entered the fog first. Their observations reduced uncertainty. Their measurements helped reveal the path ahead. Giotto carried that knowledge into the final approach. The famous images at the end of the story were not the product of a single encounter. They were the visible result of information traveling forward through an entire chain of encounters. In the beginning, multiple nations appeared to be racing toward the same destination. By the end, the destination had become something else entirely. A hidden target revealed, piece by piece. A path discovered by successive travelers. A baton passed across Cold War boundaries. And when the first detailed images of Halley's nucleus finally appeared on Earth, they did more than show a comet. They revealed the invisible relay that had made seeing it possible.